Welcome everybody to the Denver Broncos franchise. We are going to recap the 5th season of the series today. So if you haven't finished watching the season, I do recommend doing that now. But obviously, our season is over, a game shy of the Super Bowl. It was, at the end of the day, a really good season. Now, I was hoping maybe we'd have a nice episode 100 Super Bowl instead of this recap, but that's not the way things ended up. I really enjoyed the season for us this year. After the tough start, though, I think that, we have a foundation that is ready now for a very successful future with this team. So we just got to make sure that we don't take too many steps back next season. Obviously, we began this year 1-2, losing 2 games to the Chargers, but those games, they taught us a lot. And they're a big reason why we only lost a few games later on in the season. We ended up going 11-5 and had our best year of the series by far. Not only that, but we won our first 2 playoff games, and it could have been a third if I didn't throw a terrible pick 6. But I think it was also our defense's worst game overall of the postseason. But obviously, the pick 6 and the timing of it had, I think, the biggest impact on us losing. But still, the Bengals are a really good team. I won't be surprised if they go back-to-back. Alright, let's take a look at our stats then on the season, starting with the team stats. And overall, I think our offense finished pretty average in terms of overall numbers. And that's going to happen a lot of times when you are like a run-heavy offense. And at times we were this season. We ran the football very well, being a top 5 rushing team again. That led to us also being like a bottom 10 overall passing team, but we put up a lot of points. We put up actually pretty average numbers, 24.9, 25 passing touchdowns, 13 rushing. The defense now, we had a lot of problems last season with pass rush. This year, nobody got more sacks than us. I know we finished this year with, on paper, the worst pass yards allowed. I think a lot of that is because we were not that good before adding Darius Slay. And even then, we had a really good rush defense. So, best run defense in the NFL, worst pass defense. Most teams really didn't try to run the football a whole lot against us. But the number I care about most, that would be points allowed. And we were in 2nd place. Very good scoring defense. Also had the most sacks in the NFL. And for the first time in this series, we also had a good turnover differential. At least it was positive. I wouldn't say it's like great or anything, but we only had 20 giveaways compared to whatever it's been in the past. Going forward, I think there's still a lot to work on. We were actually the worst 3rd down team this year, so still seeing sacks and us getting into bad situations. But I think that, getting another year with this offense will make a lot of things even better. Although our 4th down numbers, whoa, 4 for 17. Okay, we got to improve that. At least we were 3 for 3 on 2-point tries. For red zone efficiency, 91%. I think we do have to do a better job of converting for touchdowns. Plenty of other teams had better touchdown rates than us this year. And defensively, for red zone trips, our red zone defense was pretty solid. No team allowed more red zone field goals than us. Now, I know that Taquan Layton's numbers this year were solid. They can still get a little bit better next season. 11 interceptions still, my whole goal every year is to have a 3-to-1 ratio, and rarely come close to that. So, interceptions, we're down this season, but I know I can still do better there. I know I had 3 in the last playoff game that I didn't like. Layton did get sacked a little bit less this year, but at times I do get a little more careless and start to look downfield, and gotta do better at cleaning up some of those. I think that if we take care of sacks, we also take care of that bad 3rd down conversion percentage. But overall, 8.7 yards per attempt. If you're gonna have turnovers, if you're gonna have sacks, you gotta get some big plays in there, and we certainly did. So that was a major breakthrough for the offense, getting back to hitting some big plays. Layton had almost 400 yards rushing this season. And for the running game, this is where I think that we have something special with Peppers and Donovan Jennings. They are 2 really good running backs that are good at different areas of the game. And I think that the rushing split I came up with this year after Jennings came back from injury is what we're going to stick with. I just think that the sweet spot is probably, you know, 12 to 15 touches for Jennings most of the time. We've seen Jennings now have 2 really lengthy injuries in 2 years, so making sure he's not getting too many carries in a row and is getting breaks, I think, is the key to keeping him on the field. It certainly worked for the second half of the season. At the same time, Marion Peppers is a really good lead back, and for much of the year, he was our starter and got more touches. Let's take a look at his season breakdown. No 100-yard games for him, not on the ground anyway. And then a fair amount of receiving in some of the games. My main thing with Madden is I just don't like a lot of the running backs swing routes and checkdowns they have in here. And it's tough to like throw into the flats and get upfield in this game. It's a lot easier in something like NCAA. So I don't throw it to my running backs as much as I would like. I think with Peppers, Jennings, and Layton, though, like, we couldn't be more versatile when it comes to running. We can go and run option, which I found situations where I like to call it with Layton, and then inside zone, Marion Peppers and his change of direction is so good, and then pretty much anything with Donovan Jennings, especially the speed going up for him makes it easier to just do anything, and he already had the power anyway. For the passing game, DeAndre Hopkins' first year in Denver was a big success. 10 touchdowns, almost 1,100 yards, 17 yards, a reception. We also got Curtis Samuel to his first 1,000-yard campaign as well with 6 scores. Where we had some struggles throughout the year was getting our complementary receivers more production, but I think later in the year, it got better. Centarius Phillips can play. He is really good. And so is Noah Fant. I didn't always put him in the right situations, but I know in the second half of the year, he got going a lot more. Now, what's going to happen this offseason is I'm letting Phillips and Fant test free agency. I think it's the most realistic thing, but also we have Hopkins, we have Samuel, and now I think we know that we're going to be paying Taquan Layton here pretty soon. Next year is his contract season. He was not a first-round pick, so no fifth-year option. I think it's the most realistic thing to see those two hit the open market and try to be a star for another team. Plus, I'm not sure we really have the space. I almost traded Noah Fant early in the year because I thought, you know, a trade request, a trade demand would make a lot of sense for him, being as good as he is, not getting the football in a contract year. But we started winning, he started getting the football, so I never made the trade. So that's kind of what I want to do now, is at least see him and Phillips hit the open market and see what happens. And that may mean that next year, Deion Price gets an increased role again. Now, Price did not have a very good receiving season, no touchdowns on the year, didn't really have that same big play element. I tried in some games, but after a while, I just saw it wasn't working and went away from him. So next year is a big season, it'll be his contract year. I'm also thinking about what I want to do as far as the tight end position goes next year, because I like the way we've been running the football. And I think that when it comes to the tight end spots, I don't necessarily need the tight end that starts to be a great receiving threat. I think that with all the inside zone that we call, and now going to so much more shotgun and 3 wide, I kind of want my tight end to have a little more blocking ability. So there's at least one player I'm potentially targeting in a trade I will share with you shortly. For the offensive line, I do think that things were improved this year, and I really trusted this offensive line more than I have in any other season in the series. But we do have some veterans here, and we'll see what happens with regression and a possible retirement for Trent Williams, and then David Andrews, more so just regression for him. Defensively, Myles Jack gave us another phenomenal season. Imagine if he never came here after the first season of the series. He is a complete defense changer. He makes so many big plays. Run defense is so much easier with good inside linebackers in this game. And he throws turnovers on top of it while breaking up passes as well. So Myles Jack, one of our team MVPs. But we also had a lot of pass rush this year. Boogie Turner, 14 sacks this season after posting 13 as a rookie. So that 5-sack day he had against the Jets certainly helped. I think that Boogie is a franchise player. We also have Ja'Kai Polite coming off an 11.5 sack season. I have not decided yet if I want to try signing him for another season or two, because you really can't have too many edge rushers. But I think that if we don't sign him, then we're looking at Eric Palmer, who was a first-round pick, getting more of a role. And maybe you noticed this season, I did introduce a regular defensive line rotation. So I was constantly thinking about, okay, it's been a couple drives, let's give this player a rest and bring in Cam Smithson or Eric Palmer. Palmer played 317 snaps and had 6 sacks. So if he had played like most of the snaps, we could have seen a double-digit sack season from him. He could have been Rookie of the Year. At this point, I wouldn't count on us paying Ja'Kai Polite a big contract because we have Chubb already and Palmer. Chubb had 7 sacks this year. I think Chubb is a really good all-around player, but this season definitely was his least impactful of the series. I'm not exactly sure why, because his snaps were still very high. I rotated mostly our second defensive tackle and left end spots. I didn't really take Chubb and Boogie off the field all that much. So it's a little weird that Chubb's production was so down. Stephon Charles and Cam Smithson also split snaps. 6 sacks for Charles, 5 for Smithson. I like both players. I know I signed Charles after some tough negotiating. It took a few tries, but we got a deal done. I think Christian Baxter also had a really nice season. He had 3 sacks, 2 interceptions. He's gotten better, I think, every year against the running game. Let's take a look at his tackle numbers here. It has increased this season, not by much, but it's up. I do think Baxter still needs to improve a little bit in coverage, because there were instances, especially in like play action and those intermediate routes, where his coverage wasn't perfect. We all love interceptions in this series, the ones that we get anyway, and I'd like to see a few more in the future, but overall, I like where the pass defense went this year. I think Charles and Slay were a terrific tandem, and then with Savage and Akinjide behind them, teams really had issues going down the field. So I will look to see if we can bring back Slay next season. Hopefully regression isn't too serious, but now that we've seen the way the defense has played, like compared the first half of the year before Slay to after Slay, like we want the defense that played with Slay next year. But at the same time, now Eric McKinney ended up getting his superstar X Factor. I want to see if he starts making a few more plays in coverage. He has gotten better. It's taken a little while. I thought about trading him at one point, but I'm glad I've been patient here, because now with X Factor, perhaps we can see him reach a ceiling we've not yet seen. But at the very least, very reliable tackler out of the slot, which is important. Probably the most realistic field goal numbers I've ever had. 32 for 37 with McManus. I think I missed a few that were really long. And then every now and then the accuracy gets me. So 5 misses there. 66 punts for Colby Wadman. I know last year offense was not good, so I want to see in comparison. Wow. We punted more this year than last year while putting up a lot more points. I did not expect that. But that goes right back to the bad third down numbers. I think the main thing that got better this year was we ran the football and we got big plays in the passing game at a greater frequency. For league leaders, we already know that Oliver Raymond had the most touchdowns in the NFL, 43 in just his 3rd season. I'm guessing next year he gets the monster contract. Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton had 40 touchdown passes, Darnold 39, Colbert 37. I love seeing that we already have like quarterbacks drafted in this series becoming top quarterbacks. Heikkinen and the Dolphins, they let the season slip away in the second half. I can't believe they didn't go to the postseason. Ezekiel Elliott had 2,000 yards. I've checked out his game log. I know I showed it in one episode, but in case you didn't see it, he's just putting up ridiculous numbers on a weekly basis. 188, I think that was the season finale to get him to 2,000 yards. But otherwise, nothing under 74. Gurley 1300, Mixon 1260, McCaffrey 1259, and Towns reached 1000. There are all the 1,000-yard backs and those who were close. Royce Freeman, bounce back season for him it looks like in Atlanta. Calvin Ridley is the NFL's leading receiver, ahead of Christian Kirk, T.Y. Hilton, and then DeAndre Hopkins, 4th in yardage. Most of the time, I don't have receivers toward the top of the leaderboards here, but we had 2 very high. They could see even more next year if we don't replace Fant and Phillips with similar talent. A lot more passes could go their way. 14 touchdowns for Mike Williams, the one receiver we just have so many issues with. Thankfully, the playoff game went all right for us. 7 interceptions led the league for Jordan Lewis, so expect him to get up to star development after that season. Desmond King 6, Tre'Davious White 5. For quarterback sacks, 14 for Boogie. That led the NFL, beating Khalil Mack and Myles Garrett. I can't remember if I showed all the awards, but I do not remember Zeke being the MVP. This is maybe the first time in this game I've seen a non-quarterback become MVP. And when's the last time a running back was MVP? When Adrian Peterson ran for 2,000 yards. So there you go. Coach of the Year is Anthony Lynn, 15-1 season with the Chargers. Lamar Jackson, Offensive Player of the Year in the AFC. CJ Mosley on defense. Offensive Rookie of the Year goes to Tyson Walker of the Patriots, the rookie quarterback. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Jamari Akinjide. I believe we had already talked about that. I wasn't sure if he'd get it without interceptions, but he did. Oliver Amen, best quarterback. Then Joe Mixon, Albert Wilson, David DeCastro, Myles Garrett, Darius Leonard, Desmond King, Brandon McManus. In the NFC, awards went to Zeke, Roquan Smith. Eli Gaziri becomes the Rookie of the Year over Prescott Pemberton III, who is still going to be in the Super Bowl after a great rookie year. Amari Hendricks, Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was the #1 pick. Cam, best quarterback. Zeke, best running back. Ridley, Martin, Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack, Jordan Lewis. Looking ahead to the offseason and next year, I'm already thinking about getting Taquan Layton a brand new contract. So obviously, we have to save future cap space for that contract. I imagine it'll be worth at least $22 million a year, perhaps more, because I won't be able to negotiate with him probably until mid-season or so, so the demand could go up. And of course, I'll spend all the skill points before that. I always spend all the skill points before giving a player a contract. But obviously, we want to keep Taquan Layton. He is the franchise quarterback. Next year, I know it's going to be a contract year for Miles Jack along with Curtis Samuel, 2 of our biggest free agent signings from early in the series. So, got to keep that in mind. Not sure what's going to happen with Trent Williams, but we'll have to see regression and if he retires. Darius Slay, if he's still like an 83, 84 overall, I imagine we'll want to re-sign him. Let's spend the skill point here for Taquan Layton. He is a 79 overall, and throw power is at 89. Deep accuracy is 79 without the boost. I think we'll go with the field general here just because it's such a good archetype. Overall doesn't go up. And what do we get here? Deep, medium, short, under pressure. A little bit of everything for that upgrade. When it comes to the offseason, though, right now what I'm thinking about is just trying to keep the O-line intact, which could be very expensive to do. I also want to bring in a new tight end. I'm not sure next year's starting tight end was on our roster this season, because there's one player in particular I'm targeting. At receiver, I think we're going to see a big competition for the 3rd and 4th receiver spots, because I imagine Phillips could get a big contract somewhere else. Therefore, we could have Price, Choice, Butler, and perhaps a rookie. I think I'm definitely drafting somebody in case, we don't see a big leap from Deion Price, and then Butler's already in his later 20s, so he's not going to get a ton better, but I think he can still play right now. For the defense, if we don't keep Darius Slay, we got to think about what else is going to happen at corner. I don't know if McKinney can play on the outside. as well as Charles and Slay. We haven't really tried it. I, of course, want to see Akinjide take the next step next season. We'll see how he plays. I'd say that this year he was solid, but he just did not make the splash plays that I think we all thought would happen immediately. When I think about our cap space and then trying to set aside money for Leighton, I know that keeping everybody is going to be tough. If we tried to keep Trent Williams, David Andrews, Darius Slay, that's probably 30-40 million right there. And then you consider we have to set aside probably 20 plus for Leighton. That's all we got. So we're going to have to find some young talent at some point. And the draft will, of course, give us an opportunity. Before I forget, though, I have to show you the tight end that I am thinking about making a trade for. Dalton Schultz of the Cardinals. This would not be the most exciting trade we can make, but I think that I really want a combo tight end as our starter next season. And with Schultz at 75 run block, which is like tackle caliber nearly, and 81 speed, I think that he could basically be a 6th offensive lineman blocking for us with some catching ability as well, and that could work out really well. When it comes to the tight ends we already have, I just think that we don't have a good enough run blocker on the roster. I know Jake Butt's going to regress a little bit, and maybe Schultz does as well. If that happens, I may have to look to the draft and see if there's anything we can do there. When it comes to the draft, I think I'm most excited to see if there's a young receiver or tight end that we could add to the team that could be maybe our new, like, 3rd most productive pass catcher. This tight end class does have some pretty good talent here. Dwayne Jackson, Levi Summers, Torian Morgan, Nathan Baker. I will want to see, you know, if they had good bench reps here. Run block is in the top 3 for Dwayne Jackson. I just don't know if I'd take him in the 1st or 2nd round. Tight end is typically something I address maybe in the 3rd or 4th round. So we'll just have to see if anything's possible here. I might even do some more scouting just to see if there's a late option with some good blocking and decent enough receiving that could perhaps fit that role I'm looking for. A lot of undrafted talents here at tight end, so we'll just have to see how things fall in the draft. Levi Summers, though, has the best top 3, so perhaps if he were to slide past the first couple rounds, we have no 3rd round pick, but 2 4s, so at least we have a little bit we can use to try and move around the board. There are some really good receivers here at the top of this class. I have no idea if I would take a receiver at the very top, but I think it's very possible, as Samuel's going to be entering a contract year along with Deion Price. So what about somebody like Mike Holmes? Really interested in how his combine plays, but 6'3", good catch in traffic, really good hands in general. If he runs a good 40, he'd definitely be worth a 1st round pick. What about Phil McGill, though? A really good route runner, one of the best in this class. He would be a great complementary receiver. There are really good receivers I think we could add all over this draft, so I have no doubt we can come out of this class with a pretty good wideout. One of the best values could be Shawn Wright from Texas A&M, good catch in traffic, short route running and catching, and slot archetype, and a big gap between talent and projection. If we have to draft a corner, my favorite one is JT Granger III. Good press, good awareness, zone coverage, early 1st round talent, only 20 years old. He would be amazing on our defense. And there are a lot of good 1st round corners, so if we aren't able to reach a deal with Slay, we'll have some options, including former Kalispell standout Daniel Foster, late 1st round talent. Won't have him as my number 1 corner, but he'll be toward the top. I'm excited to see where so many of these players go. Joaquin Ferreira, he can do it all. He's going to be a fun player. Eric Outlaw, we played against him in the Kalispell Dynasty, and he easily stood out as the best player on that Arizona State defense. Then you have 2 really good quarterbacks here in Lameka Warwick and Quan Tippins. Now, Tippins is going to probably be a really good value for somebody in the 3rd round. I'm interested to see where he ends up. One thing I think that is very possible is that we have to draft an offensive lineman. I think Trent Williams is going to retire. So what about Brandon Smith? Well, he probably goes way too early, actually. We're picking 30th, so let's be more realistic here. Josh Colbert probably goes top 10, top 12. Maurice Abrams, maybe. That's a lot more realistic, at least. There's Zachary Sellers as well at guard, but I'm guessing we can probably come to an agreement with Andrews. But that's where I'm at right now when it comes to the draft. I think tackle, receiver, corner are the most likely positions we target early. We could also target later on a linebacker, just because we could use some more depth there. James Huggins with this top 3. The Kalispell defensive captain. I'd love to have him on our team with Boogie Turner and Jamari Akinjide. But we'll just have to see how everything falls. Nonetheless, I think we have a very exciting offseason ahead of us. I hope you're all looking forward to it. It'll be streamed tomorrow on my channel, 2:00 p.m. Central Time, and I hope to see many of you there as we go on another offseason journey here with the Denver Broncos. That will do it for this episode, everybody. Leave your feedback down below. Let me know what you think the Broncos need going forward so we don't fall short of the Super Bowl in the future. Thank you all again. Please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next time. Have a great day.